No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. Aristotle's words were probably the first time in recorded history that a link was drawn between genius and insanity. Since then, the idea has gone on to gain lots of momentum. The image of the mad genius has been persistent throughout history. We have all heard stories of individuals who are so brilliant that they are eventually driven to madness by their own genius. This myth has been perpetuated by movies, books, and even popular culture, most notably in the form of the mad scientist trope. But is it really true? Is genius and madness intrinsically linked? A blessing and a curse? So it would be impossible to talk about mad geniuses without discussing Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla is a completely original and real-life mad scientist. Although he sadly passed away before the transistor was invented, Tesla used his formidable mind as we use computers today. He designed, constructed, and tested all of his inventions using only the power of mental concentration. Without making a single sketch, Nikola Tesla could build perfectly precise working models of his electric inventions. Tesla's intelligence was honed by his intense powers of concentration. It was this acute concentration which both blessed and tortured him from childhood on. It is possible that this fierce intensity was a response in part to the traumatic death of his older brother, which occurred when Tesla was 5. In the aftermath of this tragedy, it is reported that the young Nikola became determined to be as good and as smart as his older brother had been. Although clearly a brilliant child, Tesla also demonstrated some eccentric and strange early behaviors. He was reportedly oversensitive to certain sounds and physical sensations and could barely tolerate loud noises such as a train passing by. These sort of symptoms are often seen in children with a diagnosis of autism. Although autistic disorders were virtually unknown at the time Tesla was a child, Tesla appears to have suffered from symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder, especially in later life. He spent much of his life working obsessively and in solitude, and interacting with ordinary humans day to day seemed difficult for him. Tesla's reputation as a living mad scientist was set in stone by the so-called alien incident. His mental faculties were called into question by much of the scientific establishment after he declared that he was receiving messages from inhabitants of either Mars or Venus over his radio. He believed that there was life in the universe besides our own, and was intensely interested in finding ways to communicate with other inhabitants of our solar system. Unfortunately, Tesla was never able to convince other scientists that he had detected signs of intelligent extraterrestrials. He also really hated germs and really loved talking to pigeons, but you know, who doesn't? And then we have Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh's struggles with mental illness are well documented, and his paintings are often seen as a reflection of his inner turmoil. Van Gogh's mental health issues began early in his life, and he spent time in psychiatric hospitals throughout his adult years. He suffered from various conditions, including depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. Despite his struggles, his artistic output was extremely prolific. He produced over 2,000 artworks in just 10 years, including some of the most iconic paintings in history, such as Starry Night, Sunflowers, and The Potato Eaters. His style was unique and groundbreaking. I think it's safe to say that Van Gogh's mental illness undoubtedly played a role in his artistic vision. John Forbes Nash. John Forbes Nash Jr. was an American mathematician who made significant contributions to game theory and partial differential equations. He is also famous for his struggles with mental illness, which have led some to view him as a mad genius. Nash was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in his late 20s, which led to several hospitalizations and a long period of erratic behavior. Despite his illness, he continued to work on mathematical problems and made significant breakthroughs, including the development of Nash equilibrium, which has had a profound impact on economics and other fields. A lesser-known mad scientist is William Buckland. William Buckland, an alumnus of Corpus Christi College, Oxford, and a contemporary of Charles Darwin, is remembered for being the first man to pen a complete description of a fossilized dinosaur, the Megalosaurus. In his spare time, however, he was also a man who insisted on dining on everything, and I do mean everything, including roast hedgehog, potted ostrich, panthers, porpoises, puppies. Perhaps Buckland's greatest achievement is his reportedly having eaten the shrunken heart of King Louis XIV. The relationship between mental illness and creativity has been a subject of scientific investigations. While there is no consensus, several studies have explored this topic. For instance, the relationship between creativity and mental illness, a meta-analysis in 2013. This study analyzed data from 29 scientific studies and found a significant association between creativity and mental illness, particularly bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Another study is Psychopathology and Creativity, a comparative study of architects and psychiatrists by Rothenberg and Burgart, 1984. This study compared the prevalence of psychopathology in two creative professions, architects and psychiatrists. The findings suggested a higher incidence of mental illness in architects, supporting a link between creativity and psychopathology. Creativity and Mental Health, a profile of writers and musicians by Ludwig in 1995. The results showed that writers had a higher prevalence of mood disorders, while musicians had a higher prevalence of substance abuse disorders. And then there was a study called Creativity and Mental Illness, The Mad Genius in Question by Anderson in 1987. This study reviewed historical accounts of creative individuals and suggested that certain mental illnesses might enhance creativity. It also highlighted the complex interaction between creativity and mental health. However, it is important to note that not all individuals with mental illness are exceptionally creative, and not all exceptionally creative individuals have mental illness. The relationship is complex and influenced by various factors, including individual differences, environmental factors, and the specific nature of the mental illness. As well as this, the romanticized idea of the tortured genius can overshadow the real struggles and suffering that individuals with mental illness experience. Mental health issues can significantly impair one's well-being, quality of life, and ability to function. While creativity can sometimes coexist with mental illness, it should not be idealized or romanticized at the expense of recognizing the importance of mental well-being and seeking appropriate treatment. While there may be correlations and overlaps between mental illness and creative brilliance in certain areas, the relationship is far from clear-cut. It is a complex and nuanced topic that requires careful consideration and further scientific investigation to better understand the interplay between mental health and creative expression.